Are you prepared for the kind of death you've earned, little man?
Ah, beautiful.
That cold steel kid, as I live and breathe. Which son of a gun? I'm doing all right.
The game is about Jackal and his quest to destroy life as we know it.
Are you telling me I'm in this living hell till the end?
Everyone in the game is based on someone I know.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, so you're saying all we got are bad guys?
I can't figure out if I want to warn all humanity or start a religion based on it.
Doesn't matter when I win, it's how I play the game.
You know, sometimes, kid, I wonder if you know why you programmed me.
So if you're watching this and are wondering why we've jumped from episode 4 to episode 9, well, the bonus level video goes into it in a bit more detail, but here's the short version. I was working from a scrambled airing order up through the 4th review, and thought this episode was supposed to be episode 5. But then this very show's executive producer sent me the actual order the shows were supposed to go in, and it's actually episode 9.
I don't know what to tell you. That's the easiest way to describe it.
But I promised you Brent Spiner giving Christopher Lloyd a run for his scenery masticating money at the end of Review 4, so we're delivering it now, and adjusting the YouTube playlist for the series as we go. If all that seemed pointless because you've watched videos on all the episodes leading up to 9, well, hello from the past. Man, we hope things are better when you are. So it's Gus's birthday, and speaking of the number 9, Peter gets Gus a present that absolutely dates this series as inextricably mid-90s.
Wow, tickets to Pearl Jam tonight.
And in a development that surprises nobody, no one wants to go with him.
I don't want to have fun. I want to go with you.
Before things can go much further, Brent Spiner character acts his way in as a wormy maintenance guy named
Stephen Weefer.
Whereas Gus insists he's
Danny Schlecht. He's a practical joker.
I have a work order here for window bars, lock changes.
You got some ID on you?
He could fake ID in his sleep. Danny, whatever the joke is, stop playing, okay?
If I might suggest the mold theory as an answer to your confusion, theory being that there are only a finite number of faces or molds in the world, and that everyone's looks derive from one of them.
I like this guy.
Example, Eddie Van Halen and Valerie Bertinelli. Or possibly myself and your friend Danny.
You got a brother?
Can't say. I was adopted, much to my adopted family's regret.
I really like this guy. Despite Gus's insistence, however, Danny is confirmed as being at wherever the heck he lives, and he and we are left wondering. And we get more of the legend of Danny Schlecht, the legend of a complete and total jackass.
I once asked him to fix this antivirus program. For 6 weeks, every time I used a comma, I'd trigger a picture of Raymond Burr mooning. He always covers his trail. He's a master.
Gus sets out to try and get Lauren to go with him to the concert, and it goes about as Gus as one might imagine.
Twist my arm, I'm throwing sex. Lauren, 3rd row center. Dinner? Sex.
Slapping, door slamming, restraining order. There's a lot of character stuff that's just poison for a recap show, but unlike Electronic Arts, we aren't going to force you to pay us to skip the grind. Lauren has a date, she won't tell Gus who it is, he's a jerk about it, and tries to get his own date. You know how well that's gonna go.
Right, and you were sitting right next to that bitchy receptionist with the streaked hair. You were the bitchy receptionist with the streaked hair?
You can kind of see why I thought this episode was earlier in the story order. Because Gus has seemingly regressed. He's extra dickish this episode, and while he never becomes a paragon of anything over the course of the series, he does go through slow growth. Maybe this was just the writer for this one, I don't know. So perhaps just to shut him up, Peter sets up Gus with a lady I'm pretty sure stepped out of one of the contemporary 1-900 phone sex line ads of the day. I'm absolutely certain she is out of both Gus and Peter's leagues. I can only assume Peter gave a kidney to her grandmother, or that she's lost a dire bet. And then suddenly, Jackal!
Hit! We gotta talk.
A few moments later.
I really don't think this is a good idea.
Relax. Me going down in flames is just an expression.
No, it's not.
I confess, I'd be up for letting Jackal win just long enough for him to carve his own face into Mount Rushmore.
Go. Ow!
Kid, anything you need barbecued while your lady friend makes good on our wager?
Even regressed as he is, Gus opts to save 90s lady's life.
Run!
Even at the expense of a second date he was never going to get anyway. Jackal does as Jackal is.
It's been a while since our last encounter, and I didn't want you to think I'd forgotten. Just because my sole purpose in life is your painful demise doesn't mean I can't be civil.
And then things take a turn for the creepy.
Who is this?
I just saw Lauren and your friend Peter. Something very bad has happened.
Gus accuses Jackal of lying about the game being out of play, but...
You know very well I wouldn't pretend any such thing.
You're right, you wouldn't.
Da-da-da-da! Okay, in all seriousness, heads up folks, it's about to get unpleasant. Instead of gently glowing ash, Gus finds his friends in the apparent afterglow. Ew. This triggers Gus's complete devolution into psychological thriller villain, staring at them when they sleep until they wake up screaming to deny anything happened. Gus puts together all the pieces we have.
Oh, that's why the concert tickets.
That's why Randy Tannenbaum.
But Peter is insistent.
I doubt very, very highly that I had sex with your ex-wife.
You wanted to boink my wife.
No, I did not want to boink your wife.
I am not your wife.
While it is certainly something positive for Lauren to take a firm stand for her own sexual agency against Gus's possessiveness, because she's right and he's not, it's tainted by the circumstances that have led up to it.
Peter,
Your stupid game
together.
has ruined
Fuck
my life
naked.
completely.
May I interject?
No.
Tough. Now, how your ex-wife managed to seduce me and wipe my memory clean of the event? Something I can't answer.
Well, let's just rescind this. Lauren tosses them out of her apartment, so we're back to the lab for more arguing. And now we get to the second biggest problem with this episode. Yes, this show is often talky, with Gus having to explain the Byzantine, insular, multiple pairs of air quotes logic behind game design decisions only marginally less baffling than anything David Cage has produced. But those parts usually serve as bridges between action sequences, a slowdown period before ramping up again. But this episode is almost nothing but the talky scenes, with no action until the very end. And making it all worse is what they're talking about. On the other hand, it does mean that we get to skip a lot of this in the recap and just get to the important points, such as...
We made the list. We wrote the invites.
Were you speaking to each other?
Of course we were speaking to each other, Gus.
What were you saying?
This soda's flat. Am I right or am I right?
Wait a minute, they were only just getting around to mailing out invitations? As in the night before the party? Using snail mail? How exactly was that going to work? There's no way the guests would get the invites in time. Even if they were emailing everyone, you gotta give people a few days at least. Dick move. Good thing Gus doesn't notice this, because it'd only lend more fuel to his ire. Any rate, Peter recalling the soda's tasting off gets the three wondering if they were drugged, but the house cleaning service Lauren uses arrived earlier that day and had already taken out the garbage, and the housekeeping service can't find the woman in question anymore.
Schlecht.
Schlecht?
Maybe the maintenance guy really was Schlecht. This is all a practical joke.
Yeah, but you called his office. Schlecht was there.
So he had his secretary say he was there. That doesn't really mean he was there. Okay, so it's a little extreme, but it's classic Schlecht.
Classic Schlecht? A little extreme? Gus, kiddo, honey, if this is something you think your friend might have pulled as a practical joke, then your friend is a dangerous lunatic. I know 80s frat movies dulled our senses like a saline drip full of MDMA, but multiple crimes have been committed here, including sexual assault. This is not a joke. This is stuff that can and does mentally scar people for life, and get them sent to prison.
Now, would you explain to me how you're so sure that all of this has nothing to do with your stupid game?
Do you really think I'd actually program you to wind up in bed with anybody besides me?
This is followed by a lot more honestly gross posturing and sniping about who finds who attractive, but it ends with them figuring out that neither Peter nor Lauren ordered the pizza and the sodas that they had. Gus finally confronts the real Schlecht over the phone and...
Well, you are calling because you found my bad guy, right?
Your bad guy?
Yes, it's time for me to talk about my headcanon for the game, which, now that I think about it, I don't think they ever even name. It's always just the game. That's weird now that I think about it. Any rate, this bit right here.
Last time I was in, you were called away for a couple of hours. Had to kill a little time.
That right there is one of my major points of evidence in the Gus is an AI master, not a game designer theory that I've mentioned in prior installments. Danny had just a couple of hours, and he's invented this fully functioning villain from scratch, complete with a plan. That's not really viable unless the whole thing is very plug and play.
A tape demonstration of this level follows. As played by Daniel Schlecht, the Steel Cone Kid has 7 minutes to solve Level Unknown, the hidden explosive device.
Did he just say explosive device?
Here's Danny!
And it's at this point that I have to admit I've been playing a minor trick on all of you. You see, I've completely skipped over the cold open for this episode, which is where the footage of Schlecht planting the bomb in the VCR is from, as well as a few of the other short scenes with Game Danny, including him delivering the drugged pizza to Lauren. And I did all this to prove a scriptwriting point, that the episode's cold open utterly kills the mystery. Think back to what we've seen so far. Now imagine watching all that knowing right out the gate that there's a Brent Spiner video game bad guy hamming up the place. I mean, you did, obviously, because I've played up that aspect before, but just think about if you'd watch this fresh. Think of the story structure. It seems like a lost opportunity that an episode about a trickster doesn't actually try to trick the audience. If we didn't know from the pre-credits that there was a bad guy, then we'd know something was up, but what? Is Jackal lying about the game being out of play? Can he lie about that? Was Weaver really a bad guy? Was the new cleaning lady really involved? Is Gus paranoid? Without the tip-off, the audience would be more in Gus's shoes, unsure of what's going on. We know in our hearts that Lauren and Peter would never do this, and we know that Gus can be, well, Gus, and that him being seemingly wrong about Steven reinforces that. But, like the heroes, we'd be missing vital information that would make any of this make sense. And that's all thrown away when we get the same introduce the guest villain cold opener that we get every episode, followed with scenes of the villain being blatantly villainous. The core concept of this episode is the existence of a rule breaker, so why not break the rules of the format? It's like a good episode of Dan Versus. Yeah, Dan thinks his childhood Dennis is a criminal mastermind who deliberately sabotaged his filling. Everything in the episode reinforces that Dan is delusional and is really stupid, and then it swerves and reveals that no, the dentist really is a supervillain who installed faulty fillings as part of a mad scheme. And that reveal is hilarious, because it's not telegraphed in any way that the audience would pick up on except in hindsight. Save your swerves for the right moments, kids. Also, watch Dan Versus. It's really funny. It's got Dave Foley. Shove the cold open in its entirety right here, on tape, at the start of the final act. Let us discover it as the heroes do. Oh, and by the way, this also happened in the cold open.
My name's Dan. I'm wondering, if you were toast, would you prefer jam or jelly?
What?
Fine. Then dry it is.
So... Okay, hang on, I gotta rewatch episodes 5 through 8 to make sure this kill counter is accurate.
Let's all go to lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Huh, lower than I'd anticipated by this point. Oh, and the housekeeper? One of the scenes I skipped was in-game Danny showing up at Lauren's house while she was cleaning. And since it's a plot point that no one can find this woman anymore, I think it's safe to say...
My work here is decidedly not done.
And yes, I do realize I'd be chopping a lot of Spiner scenes out of the episode with this re-edit, and that is a shame, but sacrifices sometimes have to be made for a stronger story. Kill your darlings, as they say. Mind you, real Danny is far from off the hook here. Given that in-game Danny is following a human-written plan like all the other bad guys, that would mean human Danny had to purposely program in the drug and strip and frame scenario. Yikes.
I'm gonna turn this off.
No! We don't know what triggers the bomb.
Wait, the plan is to blow up the Cold Steel Kid via VCR? So did Gus pattern the kid's HQ after his own office, complete with VCR? Or was this a real-life Danny additional level on top of a Danny-added boss? And how does Peter fit in all this? Is there a Peter analog in the game we just never saw? Or is the rule supposed to be some random NPC? How far does this rabbit hole go?
Like you're unraveling a big cable knit sweater that someone keeps knitting, knitting, knitting.
Turns out Danny rigged the security systems to lock our heroes in the lab while he was pretending to be Weaver, so they're trapped with a ticking bomb.
Gus, Maybe we can take this guy. I mean, he's a practical joker. What's the worst he can do? You know, give us a hot foot?
In a sense.
Oh, and then suddenly, Jackal! Here's where things get interesting.
Well, a new face.
I'm wondering, if you were toast, would you prefer jam or jelly?
Nothing happened. Why?
Well, if Schleck didn't program Jackal into this level, then Jackal can't be affected by anything Schleck does.
So is that good or bad for us?
I have no idea.
Jackal's none too pleased with what's going down.
The insolence of the man. Destroying you without even asking my permission.
Which gives Gus an idea. The old enemy of my enemy is an enemy of my enemy. That's how that works, right?
This game you're playing now, in a very real sense, it's my game. In the sense that the game revolves around me.
That was then. This is now.
With Jackal, Peter, and Lauren all running interference, Gus bravely makes a phone call.
Just answer me. How do you beat the bad guy?
We're on Dragon Ball Z time here, aren't we?
Then I suggest you hurry, because we're only 2 minutes away from 1, 2, 3 dead people. Where might you two be going just 30 seconds before exploding?
Oh, please. Mr. Schleck, there must be something we could do to change your mind.
Yeah, we're pretty much open to anything. Am I right or am I right? Don't get me right if I'm not right.
What does he mean if he's right or if he's right?
Pay no attention. It's just something he says.
I see.
That's not an important scene or anything. I just found that bit really funny and wanted to share it with you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
A toast. No pun intended.
Oh.
Yes, Jackal saves the day. Sure, he saves it for entirely selfish reasons. Since an outsider he can't touch, killing his mortal enemy would be an eternal pain in his backside and an incurable blow to his overblown pride.
It's just not right for an outsider to do the honors. I guess I'm just selfish that way.
But he does, in fact, save the day.
Told you nothing happened.
So yeah, this one has issues on a few different levels. There's next to no action, and instead we get long stretches of the characters just sniping at each other in a far more vicious manner than usual, recapping things, slowly discovering what happened. And while that can be the foundation of a good mystery story, the mystery here is uncomfortable at best. And even if you try and put aside the awful, way too many other elements of the mystery make no sense. But seeing as I've talked about those at length already, let's change gears and talk about what this episode does well, because there are genuinely good ideas and concepts in this episode. Having a bad guy who Jackal has no control over is definitely an interesting twist, and it's nice to occasionally see Jackal flummox. Giving him little moments where he loses his composure grounds him as a character, while at the same time adding a bit more menace to him, reminding us of just what's underneath the surface. And Game Danny being unaware of the higher rules of the game because he's literally a piece of intrusive code added by someone outside the project is a nice touch.
I can't tell you how disappointed that makes me.
And an unconventional weakness. With the one change of moving the introduction of Game Boss Danny so it's the big third act reveal, you end up with a decent mystery. Even if the core of said mystery is... yeah. And of course Brent Spiner is fun to watch, showing some versatility with 3 different roles, although I have to say he's unquestionably the most entertaining in the subdued Steven Weafer persona. There's potential there, which I'll revisit once we've gone through the whole series. So if you're watching this video not too long after we posted it, the next episode in our production order is the Divorce Lawyer episode. Episode 5 of the show is intended. But if you're watching it after we've done videos of the 8 episodes before this one, then you've got episode 10, the Motivational Speaker, coming up next. See you next time.
you like that bit of nonsense? Well then why don't you click like and subscribe and press that bell or whatever YouTube wants you to do.
You can also do us a big solid by joining our Patreon, where you'll get to join us for live streams, get early access to the newest videos, and other such things.
Geek Vision.